Good evening and welcome to the 30th episode of the Adoption and Fostering Podcast.
30th.
With him,
Hello.
Al Coates.
Hiya.
And that's what you say, and him. Oh my days, that worked well, didn't it? And me.
And
Scott,
you.
Cass and Rennie. Yeah. Hi Al, how are you?
I'm really well, actually. Yeah.
Are you?
No. Actually, I said that and I thought that's total, utter lie.
Lie, yeah.
It is. I'm dying of some sort of chronic gut illness, but other than that, I'm fine.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah. So quickly moving on then.
Yeah, awkward pause. Yeah, no one likes a moaner, do they? Yeah.
To be fair, it's the time of year, isn't it? With, well, I don't know. I just feel really rotten just now as well. Tiredness, coughing, spluttering.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Darkness.
Yeah. Oh,
darkness of the soul.
Snow.
We had snow.
We've still got it. It's still coming down here.
Is it?
Which is unusual for where we live because we don't normally get it here.
Do you not? Well, I was in the mean streets of Tottenham, and as we literally got out the Christmas decorations for the office, it started to snow, and one of our directors is an absolute Christmas freak, and we thought we were going to have to physically restrain her. She was so excited; she just became quite overwhelmed. Anyway, tish tash tosh.
Yeah. So tonight we've got a special guest.
A very special guest.
Very special guest. So what? So you wanted to ask what the fascination was with him?
It was a peculiar fascination. Well, I noticed because I watched Twitter, the Adoption UK conference on Twitter, and what I saw was loads of people going, "Who is this man? We need to get him into my school. We need to do this." And there's the speakers were well, represented on Twitter. But this guy really set the place on fire. So I thought, hey,
that's a real compliment because really all I did was chair it. I didn't.
Not you.
Speak about.
Fooly boy. Honestly, I can't repeat the things that were said about you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've seen the evaluations. Well, interestingly, he was very engaging. He did not have long enough. He had the same time as everybody else at the conference, and it just wasn't long enough. Partly because I think he got into a stride. You know what it's like. We've both spoken at public events, and you do tend to wander off in a different direction. Not necessarily he did that, but he just did not have enough time for the 30 minutes that he was given.
He started to speak his passion.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, let's ask him on here because then he's got nearly an hour to kind of share with us. And he is a really funny guy. In fact, I've just looked at his Skype
I saw that
profile, and he's got, because he probably kill me actually for mentioning it, but he mentioned on it about he's got an issue with his clothes being wet, so bath times he puts a towel over him. So that's his Skype profile picture, is him with the towel over him, which he did post on Twitter as well. Yeah. So but he's a witty guy. I think he'll fit in quite well.
Oh, good.
And he'll probably take over from you on the podcast. So.
Oh well, then it can be his podcast.
But before him, go on.
No, I was going to say I know since the last time we spoke, you have been to see a film, and I thought I've heard amazing things about this film, and I just thought if you could give me 2 minutes on Resilience, the film. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is the second time I've seen it, and I will be perfectly honest. I got it the second time. It's maybe just me. It doesn't necessarily mean that nobody's going to get it. I don't think I found the relevance in it the first time, but the second time I really did, and it made loads of sense to me.
What's it about?
Well, it's about resilience, isn't it?
Oh well, I'm glad we had that conversation. That really cleared up the act.
It's all about ACEs, and it's about
what's an ACE?
I'm getting to that. Adverse childhood experiences.
Well done.
Yeah, I know.
Blimey.
I've got my script here. What
time is it?
So rude. But the most interesting bit about it for me was that Dr. Wendy, who asked me to go and because we did it via Adoptive Voice. So we did the Resilience film, and then we did some Adoptive Voice stuff afterwards. But she had the ability to be able to use technology to get everybody to score themselves on the races, and it was on the big screen.
Yeah.
Because it was in the theatre or the cinema at the University of Sunderland.
Yeah.
So they've got this big screen, and she was able to log in, and you could see everybody scoring themselves. It was all anonymous, so you didn't know who was who, and that was really, really interesting. If you know much about ACEs, you'll know that you have to score yourself against, I think it's 10 questions, and the negative impact of that on you as a child, and not necessarily how it affects you now, but your score now as an adult. I think that's
so the 10 things. I've never not seen the film yet, but I know the 10 things. It's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse in childhood. It's then and then it's on just divorce. It's around the circumstances. That's maybe parental drug misuse, parental absence. As a whole, it's 10. Off the top of my head, I can't remember them. But
now the one thing I will, and the one thing I'll say about this film is that it has to be licensed by. So it's available in England and Scotland and Ireland and Wales, but it has to be licensed by people so they actually have to pay to show it. So it's not available for free, which is rather irritating actually, because it should be available to everybody. And it would be really useful for schools, social workers. I'm sure most social workers will have, if not have seen it by now, then they should do. But it should be available.
Do you really think that social workers have seen it?
I don't know.
It's a serious question.
You've not seen it?
I've not seen it. My experience of professional development in social work is not, from my perspective, I get quite a lot through because I got fingers in lots of pies. But it's really tricky if you work in a local authority. If when you do your statutory stuff, you've got to do your child sexual exploitation, you've got to do your prevent, you've got to do your. By the time you've done those kind of statutory ones, there's no time for anything else, and especially when it's licensed, so there's a cost to it. So you'd be surprised. I bet 1% of social workers have seen it.
Well, that's the thing. But I think everybody should see it, and teachers and social workers, because I think that they would really get a lot out of it. It is an American film, but it's relevant. It's absolutely relevant. And the case studies that they did were really interesting as well. But like I say, I didn't get it the first time I watched it or I saw it, but the second time I really did, and I really, I can't kind of chant on about it enough, actually.
It's fantastic. I mean, in short, Wendy's passionately told me all about it, and she's kind of gone through and said, it's just amazing, but the reality is the long-term impacts of ACEs across lifehood, to the point of reducing your life expectancy to 20 years, isn't it? I think, is it 4 more ACEs in childhood potentially can lower your life expectancy by 20 years. You go,
exactly.
And I looked at the list and I thought, oh crikey, depending on how you classify those or how you designate those, I could, sobering reading, especially for our children and foster children, adopted children. Shocking. Anywho, I'm glad I asked you that, and then I explained what it was about. It's fantastic.
I've just gotten that. I'm a bit slow off the mark tonight. Thank you.
I'm here all week. Right, shall we? I do have some other questions, but I think we should just crack on, because people have come and thought, hey, we can listen to Stuart Guest, and they've got me prattling on.
We're used to that. So
he's somewhere on the internet. Shall we go and find him?
Yeah, shall we go off and find him and see where he is? See where he be.
Excellent.
So we're now joined by the world famous, because that's how it's gone this last couple of weeks, Stuart Guest. Hi, Stuart.
Hiya, how you all doing?
Yeah, not bad.
Hello.
Not bad.
Good.
Hello.
Hello.
So I think since last year.
It's been pretty bonkers actually. I only recently joined Twitter, and there's significant amount more people interested in what's been going on and what I've got to say, which is quite weird. I've had quite a few emails and phone calls and asking for bits of help and support, which is great. So sorry if I've not got back to you, and I said I would. It's been a bit bad.
Scott and I have a policy of not helping anyone. Basically, it never ends well.
No, fair enough.
No, it never does. What I was interested, because Alan and I have just been speaking, and
we did a little intro, didn't we?
Yeah, we did a little intro. And what I was sharing with Al was that on the day, actually, you had the same time as everybody else, but actually, with what you were trying to say and the messages you were getting across, you didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
So really chuffed that you've agreed to come on this, because actually it gives us 45 minutes or so just for you to speak and you share some of the stuff. So, but we have got some questions. And
okay.
They're not hard questions.
On the spot.
Our audience is quite simple. So
that's harsh.
That's the joke. That was the joke before you'll start writing into I'll get rid of that.
Just backpedaling there. Scott thinks the audience is simple. I think they're insightful, wise, and learned. Especially suddenly mummy, who knows where I live.
Well, anyway. Yeah. So, yes, they're not simple. Of course they're not. So, Al, what's your first question?
I'm not going to hold the questions. And when I start, we just put them out there.
Take off. Yeah.
Right, okay, we'll start at the very beginning, which seems like a really obvious place. Scott, the question you were going to ask to start with, we arranged this. But, yes. I can't say because that will give the question away, won't it?
Oh, I love it. You actually squirming as well, isn't it? So, one of the first questions we got was, how did you manage your school to get all the staff on board with what it was that you wanted to do?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think once he's showing a sign here, which we'll come back to.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is understanding of neuroscience and the brain, and the fact that when children have had neglect or trauma or an adverse childhood experience, it fundamentally changes how they think, how their brain is wired. And I think without that knowledge, then the rest is going to be very, very difficult to try to get people to understand, from attachment disorders to sensory processing, because then they just see behaviour. Whereas if you understand... Go on.
No, I was going to say, how did you get to that? Because you're not a typical educator in that sense, because it's not part of your training. It's not. No. It's not. As far as I know, it's not even child development. It's not in your training, is it?
No, there is a little bit, but it's quite dated. It's I don't know what initial teacher training is looking like at the moment, and we're hoping to try to get more attachment and neuroscience into that. Yeah. But from me, it's came from having a couple of adopted kids, and having to learn how to parent differently and why children reacting in different ways and why they can be so challenging. And through our own training, through going on courses ourselves, through reading Adoption Today, and the work that all these wonderful agencies are doing, you start to learn and pick it up. And then you think, do you know what? This has an impact on all children. It's not just adopted children with developmental trauma. It's, 30-40% of the general population have had adverse childhood experiences. And we could see that in school. Right. When you start understanding it, you can see the children in your school struggling.
So
need to do something about it.
Was that an epiphany? Was there literally a moment where you went, whoa, this is a game changer?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it was once we started understanding brain development, and the old concept of the primitive brain, and that's where the children go back to when they're dysregulated or when they're struggling. You can then see that within the children in the school that I'm teaching. And then you then have to share that knowledge. You've now got that knowledge. You then have to put that into practice in your own school. So the first thing we did is we made sure that all the staff were trained on it was attachment to that point. But also, I've got an amazing assistant head who's in charge of inclusion, and she learned a lot as well and did training on the neuroscience side of things.
Were you a head teacher at this point? Or were
yes.
You... Right.
Yeah, I've been a head teacher for 12 years now.
Right.
So, and I didn't know any of this to start with. Absolutely nothing. It was very much, when I go back to the first couple of weeks in the school that I'm at now, when I was a deputy at that point, children were being stood up in assemblies if they were talking. And looking back, the shame that would have happened to those children at that point, it just sends a shiver. It absolutely sends a shiver. And I said at the conference, I knew when I saw that something wasn't right, but I still didn't know what that was until we've gone through the process of adoption and until we've learned all the different aspects of the neuroscience. And something fundamentally feels wrong, but you're not quite sure why or what it is. I never heard of shame as a concept back then. So all these things that we now know that we can make sure don't happen now in the school through training, through expectations.
Yeah. So, Scott, sorry, I totally hijacked your question, didn't I, Scott?
You did. That's fine, because I'm used to that happening. So the next question is, and it's to lighten the mood a little bit, you need to explain, because Al wasn't there, obviously, because...
I know where this is going.
And it's been asked a few times. And
I have safeguarding responsibilities.
And in fact, it's even, I think it's got its own hashtag now, is, can you explain what Cookie Nookie Night is?
Cookie Nookie Night, yeah, I will explain Cookie Nookie Night.
Is it an ice cream?
It's clean, don't worry. Well,
no.
We'll make it clean.
Right. This actually came from a book. I think it's called Time Management for Manic Mums, and it was actually the author of this book spoke at a conference that my wife was at, and looking now, it's basically self-care, which is really important for adopted parents. Well, for everyone, to be fair. So Cookie Nookie, the concept is that on a certain night of the week, you would have a meal with your partner. That's your dedicated time. Kids are in bed, they've eaten beforehand, and that you have a meal. And that's it. Obviously, there's nothing else to do with it. Nothing. That's the cookie part, and that's it. That's nothing. Cookie Nookie. Then nothing else happens. It's purely a bit of food and a glass of wine. That's it. Honestly, completely. That's it.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like my cheeks are burning? What's that about?
They are, for a start, and secondly, I mean, you said more at the conference, or should I say, it created more of a chuckle. Actually, everybody was in hysterics. Actually,
yes,
we just liked the fact of what it was, but it did. It ended up being hashtagged in some of the conversations on social media.
Oh, there you go. You see,
so we had to ask you about that. Obviously.
No, absolutely.
So there you go. Right, Al, go on to a question from you.
It's kind of leads a bit on from what Scott was saying about getting your staff on board, because I've been a school governor, my children have been through school, and there's a huge pressure on you as a head and as individuals to meet your targets, and you're measured against the outcomes of your children. So how does that play into it when you're selling that to your staff and they're saying, how does this impact on my outcomes? What's that conversation? What's your message?
Yeah, well, I think it actually probably goes back 4 or 5 years, when where all this started really in school as well, was part of my learning as well. But also my inclusion leader came to me and with some data showing that her children, the ones that she was really focusing on with social and emotional mental health issues, they were the ones that were performing least well. So there you go. That's your start point. Actually, if you don't get that part right, the emotional support for the children, they won't perform. And it's as simple as that. So when you can put that into context from schools needing to keep their standards, etc., it was a no-brainer to make sure that the right resources were put in place to support those children. Because one, it's the right thing, but two, it will then enable them to perform better at school. So it's not a hard thing to sell to governors, to parents, to staff. Because it makes sense.
It works, basically.
Yeah. It works. Absolutely works. I mean, the children of the school I'm at start about a year behind where they should be when they're in reception, based on their data. And by the time they leave us in year 6, they're at national or above.
Because you're a primary school teacher.
It's a primary school. Yeah.
And so you say when you say those children, is that across the board? It's just I'm careful with my words, it's bog standard. It's just a standard primary school. You don't have a particular intake. Are you just, or are you? We're
in quite a deprived area.
Right.
So I think we're the second most deprived area behind Glasgow in terms of adult education and opportunities for employment. So we do have some challenges there, but.
So in terms of childhood adversity, are you over-representative?
Not within the city where I work, I would say. I'd say that's pretty standard, because there's a lot of challenges within the city.
But nationally?
But nationally, it's probably, we'll probably get more than most.
Right. I mean, I've got a lot of people were really just looking for you to come to their school and be there, basically, and advise them personally, which is obviously key from the emails that you've had. Another question that was in relation to the use of Pupil Premium Plus and Pupil Premium.
Yeah.
What sort of things are you doing? Are you creative with that? Do you work in collaboration? I mean, do you have many adopted children within your school? If you can say that. I don't want to draw you onto rocks.
Yeah, absolutely. All I'd say, we've had over the years that I've been there, we've had kinships, we've had special guardianships, adopted, foster, looked after. We have a range of children. My view on the pupil premium and pupil premium plus is that it's a red herring. It's a red herring for parents. It's a red herring for school. My line is, if a child has a need, then we meet the need. I'm not fussed where the money comes from. We will find the money if we need to, because that's what we have to do as a school. That's our duty, to make sure these children get the support they need. Unfortunately, the pupil premium money and pupil premium plus, we need that money as a lump sum just to make sure we continue running the school. However, if we didn't have all that money, we probably wouldn't need the amount of staff we have, particularly in terms of teaching assistants, in terms of our inclusion team, all our learning mentors. So a lot of that pupil premium money gets allocated towards the staffing cost for them.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that do all the frontline work with the children who need it the most.
Right.
So that's how it is. But in terms of pupil premium plus,
the difference for people who may be listening who don't quite understand the nuance. What is the nuance of? What's the difference? Just for a layman.
The pupil premium is around £1,300 per pupil who has been eligible for free school meals, so meets certain criteria with benefits with their families at any point in the last 6 years. So once they've had a free school meal, at any point for the next 6 years, they will get allocated the pupil premium. So the school will get allocated.
That could be a big percentage of any school, couldn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a fair chunk of money that can be used. Then the pupil premium plus, which is sort of £1,900, that's for previously looked after children, service children, looked after children, but the virtual heads keep that money and only allocate it where it's needed. So it is a bit extra. What I would always say, I know because people are always asking, well, I want my child's pupil premium plus used in this way and this way. One, are they meeting their needs? Forget where the money's coming from, because that's the priority.
Yeah. If
they're not, and the school has not been trained on developmental trauma, on attachment, then I think you've got a right, if you're getting pupil premium plus, for them to at least use that extra £600 for whole school training. Full stop, end of story. That's a given. Every school needs to have that level of training, and because they get that every year.
I'll say I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm an adopter. Little Tarquin is, I see that he needs specific requirements, and if I come to you and I say, I don't want you to use that money for school development, I want you to meet his needs, additional hours or specific intervention. Yeah. How does that conversation go? Do you have those challenging conversations?
Absolutely, but we never have that conversation regarding pupil premium. Yeah. Because we have that conversation regarding the child's needs. Okay, what needs does the child have? Okay, what can we do to support that need? Yeah.
But the pupil premium plus, perhaps challenging you and saying, what you're doing with it, how are you going to use it? I don't think that's appropriate, but that is appropriate. I want to come on this. Do you get that? Have you had that?
We don't, because we make sure we're meeting those kids' needs, regardless of where the money's coming from.
It's chicken and egg, isn't it?
I can see why those conversations would happen. We're very clear about how we use our pupil premium money and our pupil premium plus. It's on the website. People can see exactly how it's used, and it should be on every website of every school, because they have to publish it. Yeah. So you can have a little look. And I've seen lots of different ways schools have used it. Some are a bit iffy, some are a bit ropey. But bottom line is your child's needs being met in the school. Because actually for some children, their needs can be met just by the general good quality teaching that goes on, and the caring teacher and the caring approach. For some, they need a hell of a lot more. That will be way above £1,900, way above £1,300. And that's the way up. It's the collective pot used to help support all children, but particularly those. If you've got a need, you get it supported. Yeah, you meet it. Mm-hmm. You find the money somehow.
So Scott, you had a question from
I do.
Carey.
Yeah, and it's kind of relevant to us as well at the minute. But what's your thoughts on secondary education and how they deal with a similar kind of?
Speak freely. You're among friends.
I think secondary schools have got their own challenges because of the nature of secondary schools with children moving around to so many different teachers.
Yeah.
You know, the thing with primary is the children can develop quite a strong bond and relationship with that one teacher as long as they're the right teacher for that child. All I'd say for a secondary, and particularly as a guidance for parents, is get that little information packed together for your child. Get those key indicators. You know, this is what my child might exhibit. This is how you deal with it. You know, and make sure then every teacher that child has received that information, and that's an agreed plan for that child, because then parents can then hold the school to account if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's the key thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very proactive approach, isn't it? So when would you suggest parents do that?
I would do that before they even start in year 7. You know, I would be looking as part of the transition that you go and meet with, whether it's a pastoral leader, whether it's the year 7 lead, whether it's the head, deputy, whoever it would be that's going to be able to have some influence, agree a plan, get a written plan for your child, which explains what their needs are and how they should be dealt with. You know, and I think once you've got that written plan that's then distributed to all those teachers, it's their professional responsibility to read that and then follow it, because that is a plan for your child, and then you can hold them to account if they are then not following it.
I like those words, holding to account.
You're writing them down.
Written that down. I am writing that down because after the week we've just had, yes, I'm going to need them. And just before I'll ask his next question, I wanted to. I wanted to ask this question of you when I saw you. Are you ever challenged by your head teacher peers or other teachers about your approach?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think the biggest thing we found, because we've changed our behaviour policy, gradually over the last 4 or 5 years to become attachment friendly, and based on everything that we continue to learn, we continue to change it and adapt it. For some people, that can be challenging because all they've ever known is that the super nanny approach, you know, the rewards and sanctions, because it's so ingrained in British culture, almost. It's just there, and there's such a lack of understanding that how detrimental that is to all children. It's just a rubbish approach because it's not based on relationships. That it takes longer for some people to get with the program on what we're trying to achieve. But those that are willing to listen and willing to learn do very quickly come round and understand it, why you're doing it, see the benefit of it. Those that just fundamentally can't, don't last.
Right, okay.
And that's hard. Yeah. You know, I make sure when I'm doing the recruitment that I recruit like-minded people.
Yeah.
So it's not just about that outstanding teacher or whoever that, you know, what it looks like on paper. If they can't answer those type of questions in interview about what nurture looks like, about how to deal with children's behaviour, if they get that wrong, they don't get the job.
Yeah. I guess those ethos and values, you can't necessarily, you can teach them to an extent, but you're looking for people of a like heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, I know as an employer myself, you want the heart. If you've got the heart, you can train
do the rest.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
I was going to ask, because I guess really, I'm thinking of the people listening to this and they just want help. Lots of people want real practical help. And I was thinking, on a really sort of pragmatic, sensible way, how do we approach schools? What makes people listen to, if you go in all guns blazing, or you go in with your big book of facts and say, here, I've seen people say, I bought my teacher this book, it was 500 pages and it would explain everything.
No. Yeah. So they're not gonna read it. I think the first thing is as much as you can build some alliances, build up, whether it's the Senko, whether it's the individual class teacher or a TA. Build a relationship tightly with somebody who you can trust, and that they get you and they understand you. I think that's really helpful to start with. I think once you've gone in full guns blazing, potentially you're going to be looked at as a difficult parent. You know, and that is the challenge, because unfortunately, some people in schools think because they're the educators, because they're trained teachers, because they've got the degree, they know better. You know, I've been doing it for 20 years, you know, whatever. Actually, a lot of this research has only happened in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So they don't know it because they're not recently trained. So, but I think build the relationships. I would always go, if you want my child to be successful here, these are some of the things that we do at home. These are some of the things you might be able to do that are going to help you in the classroom with my child.
Yeah.
And I think if you can show that you're trying to help, then you're starting to build that relationship. And it's the first time the teacher gets it wrong with your child by doing something again. They go, oh, that's what it meant.
Yeah.
I see it now. And then they start trusting you because you know what you're on about. I'd always go on.
No, I was going to say, potentially you can make their teaching job easier.
This is it. That's what I'll go along, because every teacher's going to want to do anything they can to make it a little bit easier, especially with the most challenging children. So, you know, even if it's just that little thing, if he does this, we find this works at home. You're not telling them to do it. You're just saying, actually, this is how we deal with it, and this works for him, so you might want to try it.
Yeah. And finding those warm bodies, I know that we've always tried to find a sympathetic ear, and they are there. People don't go into teaching because they want to be draconian for us. They want to teach. You know, most like social workers want to do good, but the pressures of the job sometimes it constrains them, restricts them, and squeezes them down.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, also, if you could get a professional on board who will go into the school with you, support, or even just go in, you know, we're very fortunate. Our clinical psychologist that we've done work with through the DDP has visited our children's school and spoken to the teacher.
Yeah.
You know, and that really helps because it's coming from a professional. It's not coming from a parent.
Yeah.
It's coming from a professional, and you know, they say yes, this is right, this is what happens, etc., etc.
Did you face those challenges? I presume your children haven't gone through your school because that was a bit peculiar, isn't it?
Yeah. No, they haven't gone through that.
How do you approach? Because people see you coming up the path and go, "Oh, crikey, here we go."
No, absolutely. I think it's what I say, it's building a relationship with that person that gets it.
Yeah.
And also that has a little bit of influence. And it is slowly dripping the key bits of information, and also cutting the school a little bit of slack, because actually they don't know, and it's not their fault they don't know. But what we can do is try to educate them, you know, and continue to say this will help.
Yeah.
You know, but it's a hard one. It's a hard one, especially if there is nobody at that school that gets it.
Yeah, and I think
that's a real challenge.
There's this difference between being trained and qualified to teach and actually knowing how to address behaviours and.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not qualified to.
Don't say that.
But there's a massive gap between being a qualified teacher or a qualified nurse, or you know, and it does come down to that level of empathy and understanding about all these things. So I just, you also get teachers who have that, but actually just don't know how to react to behaviours differently and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
so many teachers are so nurturing and caring because they've gone into that profession.
Yeah.
And actually they want to do a really good job for the children. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know the most difficult what to do. So, you know, we just recently trained all our staff on the use of pace in the classroom. You know, the Dan Hughes approach, you know, and what it specifically looks like in the classroom. We know what it looks like at home as a parent, you know, but what does that translate to in the classroom? Right. So, you know, so we've done bits of training on that. We've mocked up scenarios where, you know, you're having a conversation with a child who's been disruptive in the classroom, what it looks like without pace, and then what it looks like with pace, and you get a better outcome. And that's it. Again, if you can see ultimately that you're going to get better outcomes with the children by having a therapeutic approach and a listening approach, then again, it's a no-brainer. But staff need training on it. They need to understand it.
Yeah. I've got a really specific question from Adoption Adventures.
Okay.
Adoption Adventures. Do you repair all incidents, which it links with what you were saying. So do you repair all incidents with the children or just some? And how do you decide? And the next question is, could you Skype into a school meeting to support me?
No problem.
Reasonable rates. We could be your agents,
Scott.
We
could absolutely. Managers. I can go into schools and do training, so yes, I can do that. Stuart _Guest Twitter. There you go. Just let me know. Repair is
That's the end of your life. You know that, don't you?
I know, that's
the end of your life.
Let's do it on my retirement. Repair is really important for all children, because it's only through repair that you start developing that neural pathways to learn from that and then make different choices later on for those where it is a choice.
So would you repair all in that case? if possible.
Yes, yeah, repair. But we for example, we never get children to say sorry.
Right.
We never say, so you need to say sorry. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. This has happened. This is the incident. This person's upset. Okay. How can we sort this out? You know, it's those sort of questions. You know, how can we show them that we're sorry for what's happened, and how can we repair it? And the children will come up with it. You know, 9 times out of 10, the children come up with it, and actually they're usually harder on themselves.
Yeah.
than probably we would ever be. But it's also, you know, just it's not the end of the world when some of these things happen. You know, I use the Princess Poppy from Trolls concept. You know, get some perspective. You know, when some of these incidents happen, it's not that mad. If a child has, you know, who's having difficulties, has scribbled on the floor or scribbled on a table, okay, let's not blow that out of proportion. Let's just work with them and let's put it right, and then move on really quickly. You know, it's just get things in perspective. Some people can take it a little bit too far.
And I think sometimes teachers can take behaviour personally as well.
Absolutely.
Well, this is my impression of it anyway. Is that, you know, by doing that, actually they're making it worse. They're making it worse for the child.
Yeah.
They're probably making it worse for the parents as well. Actually.
Yeah.
You know, because you know, I refer mainly to secondary schools or home school communication and all that sort of stuff, where things are reported that actually, do you know what? Whoopie-doo, you know, the child raised his voice at you. Actually, whose issue is that? Is that more about you, or is that more about the child?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of it's within that bracket, isn't it?
I think it is. It's one of the part of the training we've just done on the pace as well. The first thing I said is you can't attempt to work with a child who you've had difficulties with if you are not in the right place, if you're not regulated, if you've been triggered. You need to not do that conversation at that time.
Yeah.
You know, and it can be done later. It doesn't have to be done there and then. It's the old concept of strike while the iron's cold.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do it. And actually, the day after the training we did with staff, one of the teachers actually came back to me and said, "Do you know, I stepped out the room and left my TA there for 30 seconds because she recognised she'd been triggered by something."
Yeah.
All right.
So, and she knew that because of the training, she then shouldn't be dealing with it at that moment in time. You know,
but that's a complex message, and it takes the level of security to actually say. And sometimes in that you can say, "Actually, I'm wrong. I shouldn't be freaked out because he put his hand up again, or he raised his voice, or he won't stop bloody fidgeting." Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And you think I draw my parallel with my experience of parenting is that it's just been 20 years of torment where I've learned what an absolute prat I've been, where I've learned about all of these triggers, these buttons, and it's just this process of me pushing back and discovering actually what, like you say, getting that perspective on what they're doing and regulating myself.
You've got to be self-aware. You've got to be really reflective on what you're doing. So,
which is not easy.
It's not easy. And it's not easy because, you know, you're naturally, we're defensive. We want to protect ourselves emotionally and, you know, with our jobs.
And why the hell should you? You're a teacher. You didn't come in teaching to sit and reflect. You came in to teach. And the little so-and-so should do as they're told. And you can see that in your head going on.
Absolutely.
Why won't they just...
But interestingly, when you mention about repair, we also make sure we do repair with staff and children. If staff have got it wrong, they then repair it with the children. You know, that's really hard, you know. But actually, staff trust that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, we all make mistakes. I treat the staff like I would the children. I don't go and shout at them. You know, we work through things and we put it right. You know, and we so a lot of times over the last sort of 10 years, staff have apologised to children and say they've got it wrong, and that forges really good relationships, knowing that actually.
It's a really contemporary model of teaching, isn't it? Because I think back to my teachers. I was thinking, I had a teacher who was called Mr. Argument. He really was called Mr. Argument. But I look back and that wasn't even on the agenda. It was just...
No.
But you see that ethos and values of perhaps they continue. Well, it's a super tanker, isn't it, that you're trying to turn around?
Yeah.
To be fair there now, they didn't have pens and pencils or paper either. And there also wasn't a curriculum when you were at school either, was there?
But, I have reflected on that. I thought, well, actually, but there was scope for teachers to kind of... Kids who were struggling, they were just sent off to mess on in the metalwork room for,
Yeah.
And so I do wonder whether, because of that real lack of constraint and that drive for targets, they could say to Johnny, do you want to go to the metalwork room? Yeah, I'll go to the metalwork room and hit things with hammers. Right, crack on, Johnny. And Johnny got one CSE in hitting things with hammers.
I can see this has triggered something in you here. do you want to talk about it?
I do, actually.
Do you need... We can support you, Scott and I. We can sort this out live.
Yeah, I failed my GCSEs.
Yeah.
Enough of that. All right, Ms. I've got... Ms. asked, do you like rainbows and clouds in general? Or is it just these behaviour management that's the problem, right? That's Twitter language. I don't know what that really means.
I saw that one. As from the conference, people will know that I've got a real beef with the ridiculous rewards and sanctions that occur in schools. I just think it's a complete nonsense. A lot of the stuff that goes on, anything from winning huge prizes for coming to school every day, to the visual display of your lovely name floating across a cloud or up and down a coloured board if you've spoken out of line or whatever it might be. I was in a school this week and I saw a behaviour chart on the wall and this poor kid's name right at the bottom on the red zone. And I was just like, you poor kid, because every parent that walks into that room, because it's there. That's him again. I see. No, stop it. So it's
just
just
pull it off the wall and rip it up and.
You just. But to be honest, I'm trying to get that message across when I do my meetings with the head teachers. Try to drip feed it in. Say just take it down. I met some NQTs last year that came and visited the school. And that's one of the things I always ask them. I always put my agenda out there for everyone that comes around the school. They hear it. I said, do you have behaviour charts in your classrooms? And they go, yeah. It's a school policy. Oh, okay, right, okay.
So you're picking fights.
Yeah, I do pick fights. But then I say, okay, is it always the same kids that are on the Reds? Yeah, always the same kids. So it's not working then.
Boom.
Okay, all right. No, and to be honest, a lot of the times, a lot of the new staff, NQCs and other schools will often say, "Yeah, we don't really like it, we don't really use it." So I always challenge. I say, "Go back to your head and say, can I take it down for a month? Can I try it without it?
See what happens."
And see what happens, because I think there's fear. I mean, a lot of the behaviours come from fear, and that's the same in leadership in schools. They fear that suddenly, if they don't have that thing that's been there for X many years, that suddenly the school will turn into chaos, and it doesn't happen as long as you've got the relationships right.
Yeah.
So
I have a word, and I'm just going to say the word, and then you can say what you need to say on it. And that word is homework.
I'm off.
Homework. Oh goodness me. Oh God. Right, where do I start with homework?
I'm sweating now. He's going, oh my god, what's going to happen here?
Right. Okay. First and foremost, primary school homework. Okay. The evidence is mounting that it has very little impact academically. Okay, so let's put that one out there.
So
it's actually
we quote you on that.
Really,
Guest,
yes, you can quote
2017.
Yeah, it has very. There's so many different research reports. It has very little impact. Okay. So right. Okay.
Just let it out.
There is a very clear two camps of homework pressure in school. #boom there from Scott. You've got the parents that want lots, and you've got the parents that don't want it, and you can never achieve that for all parents. My view on homework is that it's the school's problem, it's the school's issue. If they're insisting on it, then they deal with it. It should never, ever, particularly with our children, affect the relationships at home. We never. I mean that. We don't have an argument.
I'm having a flashback.
About homework. Yeah, you don't have the argument. And we've learned this with one of my eldest, that we did have the arguments about homework, and we came to realisation, no, We're not going to do it because it's damaging our relationship. So we don't have the issue. What we do say to the school though is, you know what, homework's difficult for us, and they might not do it. Yeah. Okay, sorted. There you go. Dealt with it. Okay. And we get that, but that goes back to the plan. That goes back to that written plan that you have in place of homework. So for secondary schools, for primary schools, it might say next to that child's subheading of homework, please set the homework as per, you know, school policy or as per you want, but please be aware this may not come back. And please be aware you do not keep them in detention, you do not do this, this and this, you know. Yeah. But homework is a pain. You know, we've changed our homework approach over the last few years. We do send, you know, some activities home once every half term for the children to do.
Is there a tangible difference in achievement?
No. because it's actually what we found this year when it's become more voluntary is that actually the quality of some of the work that's coming back is much better.
It's not a chore, it's a choice.
It's not a choice, it's a choice, you know, and we understand that the best way to improve outcomes is to have a really good dialogue with the parents, you know, and to pick up on the specific thing that child's having difficulty with, you know, and can you help by working on this single thing? You know, that's what's gonna improve things, not stack of stuff every week.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit because I can. Right, in the news almost every other week there's an issue, you know, school league tables where English children, British children are falling down, and Finland and China and every other country in maths at GCSE level are so far ahead. Yeah. What is the solution? You look at their school systems, and I don't know them, but they seem really rigid. They're learning by rote. They're countering what you're saying. You're much more nurturing. So,
yeah, but if you look at the Finnish model and some of the Scandinavian countries, their whole early years till the time of 4, 5, 6 is all about nurture and play and social skills. You know, if a child hasn't had that right reflective bonding with adults, that understanding of their needs, meeting of their needs, their brain's going to be wired different for learning. Yeah. So if it's not done by the time they're 2, 3, in terms of that hard wiring of that,
those neural processes,
ability to learn, it's a lot harder to rewire and bypass some of those circuits so they can learn more effectively later on. So, you know, it has to be that nurturing approach in the early years. It has to be.
But are there people who just plainly think you're wrong and are going to go toe to toe with you over that issue?
I don't think so, because we can demonstrate it. Right. That it works. Yeah. So we're not, you know, if we were a school that was, you know, inadequate, requires improvement, you know, having difficulties with attainment, then people could question you, rightly so. But we're not. You know, we're a good school. We've got, you know, some outstanding elements. You know, we're in a position to. Yeah, exactly. We're in a position to be able to say this works.
Yeah. And I think that homework's interesting in high school in terms of it's very different. And I'm one of these people that throw my hands up and say that I totally agree with what you're saying, because actually it starts to have an impact on your relationship at home, especially when you've got children with trauma who have very, very short-term memories, who can't remember actually what they were taught that day. Never mind. Having to come home, and then you end up having to do it with them. But there's also other stuff, and high school specifically, you know, stuff not getting marked or returned to kids, so actually they don't know how they've done, you know. And I'm using my own experience here. You know, three kids who are all, well, 2 of them are sadly adults now, but they've all had the same issue.
We need to talk about that later.
Yeah, we do. But they never got the homework returned, so it had an effect. It had an impact on them, because I thought, well, what's the point?
Exactly.
In doing it?
Yeah.
And also,
definitely.
I don't know how I'm doing. The other thing about, especially up to the age of 13, go home and do some research on this guy or this woman.
Yeah. Lazy.
So it is, because actually, and also what they're doing is they're encouraging children under a certain age to go on the computer on their own.
Absolutely.
And that really, really, well, that's one of my pet hate.
It is without the skills of knowing how to research it and what to do. Yeah,
because
absolutely.
actually, I know from my experience with Jacob that he has to do this research homework, and he ends up on YouTube watching boxing.
Of course, he does.
Like that,
yeah, this is it.
But there
he
is
finds the
there is
podcast heavens to
terrible
like that.
But there is the other bit for me, and that's about preparation for exams in high school.
Yeah.
Not experienced the homework and the kind of the routine of sitting down and doing some revision or learning or stuff like that.
Yeah,
I guess that's a bit that we've never managed to overcome, because we've always said, if you don't want to do the homework, that's fine, because I'm not going to sit here and argue with you over it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then when you get to 14, 15, 16 minutes, that's when it becomes trickier to get them to sit down and revise.
I think with a secondary, I think homework is different to study, because I think you can understand what topics the children are learning about if you've got that skills and the knowledge to do that, and try to find out and get those type of study books so that they can do study rather than necessarily homework. With the homework, for a lot of homework, they can either do it or they can't do it. Who's there then to help them?
Yeah.
So if they can already do it, it's a waste of time. If they can't do it, they're going to struggle and get demotivated. Whereas with study, if you've got a study guide, then you can gradually work through and gradually improve their understanding of whatever subject or topic they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's slightly different. Yeah. It's giving them the opportunity to study. It's not saying I don't want you to study. I don't want you to do the homework. I'm just saying if you do study well, then you will get better grades. Yeah. And it's that natural consequence, and which is hard for us as parents, because we want them to do well, and it's difficult to get. we don't want them to really get to their GCSEs and not do well. But actually, what's more important, it is the social skills, it is the relationships that we have with the children. That's what's going to get them through life, not necessarily a C at GCSE.
I repeatedly say this to people, that you can get your GCSEs at 42.
Yes, exactly.
52, 62. But you cannot, that critical time of brain plasticity, through adolescence, you get one pass. You don't get another pass. I mean, the brain does continue to grow, but
that's the main bit.
Sweet spots.
Yeah.
And that if that's a time of conflict and fighting, and for example over homework, my daughter, I don't want to do my homework. Right, well, I'll do it for you just to avoid the fight. You will not do your homework. And it's okay, well, you do your homework. I'm not doing my homework. Well, don't do your homework. Oh, but if I don't take my homework, I'll get killed. All right. So let's just fight instead. That seems like the easiest option. And that's probably repeated over and over again. Really complex dynamics with shame at the centre.
Well, and do you know what else? I mean, we always encourage to at least attempt homework.
And this is just Scott talking about me making him read for the podcast.
Okay. But when you see stuff copied and pasted from Wikipedia, all right, and you're right now, my husband, bless him, all right, he'll do the that you're not saying that, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, do you know what? If that's what you want to do, then off you go, because
do it.
Let the school deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was interesting. I was speaking to somebody the other day, and they said, yes, but what if the school? I can't remember who it was I spoke to. Oh, it was one of my friends, actually. Her son did exactly that, copied, and she called it the biggest pile of SH1T that she'd ever read in her life. And he's a very intelligent boy, or adult now, but and he got an A for it, and he's actually copied it off Wikipedia. And that's the worrying bit is, it's about the marketing, blah, blah. But, if he wants to send that in, I'm hopeful that it will get sent back with a kind of big, in our day, it would have been a big red pen or whatever. Yeah. Hopefully, wouldn't do that because that would shame him. But the equivalent in terms of kind of nurturing experience of you can't copy from the internet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But one thing I would say, I mean, particularly with our kids, we have homework Monday night is homework night, because they do get set homework, and again, we want to encourage them to still do it because it's fine to try to do it, but we make it as comfortable as possible. So that always comes with hot chocolate and a biscuit. Biscuit Monday, right. So it's linked. So actually, they will often just sit down and do it. They might do a bit, might do a lot, might not do any, but they still get the biscuit, they still get the hot chocolate, regardless.
So when doing your biscuit-based life.
Yeah, it's cookies again, isn't it? We'll get back to it.
I was going to say, does that happen the same night?
No.
No.
I wasn't going to
Move
say
on.
that, though I did think it. Then, in that case, it leads really naturally to an obvious question: is where do you stand on bourbons?
Oh, definitely anything with a bit of cream in. And dunk.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Is that
Stepping away
was that
from the microphone.
Unintentionally, Al has taken it somewhere where my mind has just gone completely in the gutter.
Step away
There
from
you
the
go.
Thank you for
podcast.
that.
I'm aware that we're on an hour. On the hour.
Yeah, you're going to be chucked out in a minute. Is there anything that you want to say, Stuart?
I have a question.
before he
This is
chucked
really
out?
good. Something really practical. You talked about the pack that parents should take to schools.
Yes. Yeah.
Give me the headings for the pack.
Oh, right. I would definitely do sensory, if there's got any sensory needs.
Yeah.
Homework,
Yeah.
dysregulation, what to do if they're dysregulated. Dealing with the behaviour, how to deal with the behaviour, what are the key approaches. I'd also put bits of their story, so the teachers
version.
develop a bit of empathy for that.
Enough
Because I think just enough to sort of make them think, we don't want sympathy.
But it helps.
Actually, that's the start. That's the start point. They might have a bit of empathy for them. I think they're the main bits. What triggers them and how to deal with it. What times of the year they might find difficult. What topics they might find difficult. The common language to use. So for example, if the mother's, I'm talking primary here. Mother's Day, that can be really tricky. Father's Day can be really tricky for our kids. So if they say they want to make 2 cards, then yeah, that's fine. And the right language, birth mom, mom. That's the language we use. That's the language we expect you to use. It's things like that. I would also say to all parents, get the curriculum off the school website or ask for it, and find those tricky spots, because they are throughout the whole of the curriculum, whether it's genetics, whether it's that NSPCC assembly, whether it's drugs and alcohol awareness. They're littered through the whole curriculum now because of the expectations, what schools have to teach and have to prepare children for. So if they're coming up,
that's a big list.
It's huge. It's an absolute massive list.
Could I ask you to email that list to me?
I will do my very best.
And I'll put it onto the website.
Well, and I was just going to say, Stuart, you've got a little kind of cloud thing, haven't you, going on?
Yes.
You've got loads of stuff on there as well.
Yeah, there's a lot actually on there that covers that.
Yeah, so we'll put the link on the website as well.
What is that? Say that? Do you know?
It's loads of information that Stuart's collected and put together.
What's the link? Can you say it?
It's a OneDrive. It's got loads of letters and numbers.
Yeah, okay.
So we can put it somewhere so that you can get to it.
That's great. Thank you. And I'll put that on the doodah.
The doodah.
The doodah. Very technical.
Blurb. Yeah.
So just quickly then, Stuart, is there anything that you want to share with listeners in terms of anything that we've not covered that you'd like to say?
Oh God, so much.
Well, you can come back on.
You've got 10 seconds. Well, I was going to say that. I think we'll have to have you go back on, because I just know that this is going to be probably one of our most popular podcasts.
Yeah.
And
what about Jammy Dodgers? Where do you stand? No, don't go there.
I think just a couple of things really. One, be aware that schools don't know the stuff, and gradually try to educate them. There's some really good podcasts. So I'm going to get for now.
That's a lovely interview we had there, and
exactly, yeah. Oh, they couldn't press record. Sorry about that.
Again, yeah. Some really good little snippet podcasts and YouTube clips that give developmental trauma and attachment difficulties a really good summary within sort of like 3 to 10 minutes. It's worth sending those links to teachers, because they might just click on it if they know it's 3 minutes. And it just starts that idea that actually these kids are different, and it's not just the parent saying it. It's real. So that would be my one tip for parents. Do that form. Take the time, and you've got to be proactive and get that form done for your kids, so you can hold the schools to account if they don't meet it. Just get some agreed principles with the school, that it's the homework, how to deal with the children, that they will not have detention, they will have this instead, that they won't miss the break if they miss the homework, because it's not natural consequences. All these things that you can. Oh, there's so much, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah,
I'd love to get you back on, and
definitely.
Yeah, and you have an idea of if there's specific things you want to say, or really welcome.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is to be able to cover some of the practical changes that, for example, that we've implemented in school that make the school attachment aware and adoption friendly, because they're really simple changes that can have massive impact on the outcomes for the kids.
Yeah. And I second what you're saying there, because I think I've learned through work as well. If you want a teacher's attention, it has to be very brief, very to the point. Even if you send them a flyer, it needs to be like 3-point flyer, not a whole ream of pack.
Yeah. Not cool. John Bowlby's 4-part volume on attachment and separation and loss.
Not going to work.
Well, listen, Stuart, thank you. I'm just going to share this because I've thought of something that actually summarises how the adopters that came along to the conference think of you, because you appear to have taken on this kind of persona of being Dan Hughes' equivalent in teaching. That's what I'm getting.
Teacher whisperer.
Yeah, exactly. I was ready to go home. Look, he's ready to shoot off. But I think that's right, and I think that I've been I felt quite good about the reaction to on the day and since as well, and I think that it's just we do need more people like you in our schools. So if we could just clone you like Dolly the sheep, we'd be sorted.
You're awesome.
My wife would be happy. Back to Friday night.
He's back with his helmet on again. Look at this idiot. Honestly, I've got to take a photo of that just for the. There you go. Yeah. Okay. I'll tweet that later. Oh, honestly, the people I have to work with.
Yes.
At least Stuart got dressed up for the conference as well. He put a tie on.
I did. He
looked better than me. He looks smarter than me actually.
No comment. Yeah. It's been great to have you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Look after yourself. And you, Scott.
Will do.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.